Hi, I'm Doyle and I want to talk about Self-Injury Awareness Day. Keeping that in mind, please be aware that this video is going to discuss some very heavy topics like self-harm and suicide ideation. Please protect yourself and do not watch the video if you feel vulnerable, and know that there are supports available. With that in mind, hi. As I say, today is the 28th, oh no, today is the 1st of March, and it is Self-Injury Awareness Day, which is a grassroots community-led awareness day set up to promote awareness around self-injury or self-harm, whichever way you like to describe it, reduce the stigma surrounding it, and signpost people towards supports and help out there. But what is self-harm? Self-harm or self-injury is deliberately hurting yourself, where the caveat tends to be without the intention of suicide. And it comes in a variety of different ways. Some of the ways are very common on the likes of TV shows and movies. Other ones you may be shocked to realize they are considered self-harm. So things like scratching at skin or biting. And there are many different reasons why people may engage in self-harm. And some people will only do it once, and some people will struggle their entire lives with the urges. Why do we care about this at Neuro Pride? Well, aside from the obvious of we care about people in general and we never want to see anybody hurting, it's particularly important conversation for the neurodivergent community, because neurodivergent people are a higher risk of self-harm than neurotypicals. If we take, for example, BPDers, some studies shows that 80% of BPDers have self-harm. And autistic children, some studies have shown up to 25% of autistic children self-harm in comparison to their neurotypical peers, which is at 10% of overall like age groups. That is grim when you think about it. It is a very important topic for our community. I want to make something clear when I'm talking, and that is there's supports out there. Sometimes it feels like a losing battle if you try to get supports, but they are there. It can take some persistence and it can take fighting. So my number one piece of advice will be to have somebody in your corner, have somebody helping you fight if needs be. Because if you are in a position where you need those additional supports to help combat urges or actions, you may not have strength left over to then fight the system. Get somebody on your side if you can, trusted friend or family, and reach out for help. There are supports available through the HSE with your GP, your local emergency department, local health center. If you are finding yourself in need of talking to somebody, text hello to 50808 or ring Smartens. There are many charities out there that are so good at helping support people. So today I wanted to share with you my experience with self-harm. And once again, I am going to warn you that this is going to get heavy. I am not going to skirt around language. I'm going to use blunt language to describe these experiences of mine. But the first time I cut with the intention of self-harm, I was 7. I am now 30, and I have been cutting on and off since then. For me, self-harm conjured up the idea of knives. It conjured up the idea that we see a lot in the media of bleeding wrists. I learned later on that it encompassed more than that. But I'm going to start with my experience of cutting because that is the one I'm a BPDer. And for me, cutting became a ritual. It was a very, very taught out ritual where I had all my blades, I had my first aid kit, I had everything in a secure place that was handy for me to get to, that when I felt my emotions were getting too intense, when I wanted a break from those emotions, I wanted to distract myself from those emotions, I could go and get out my kit. I was very conscious of making sure I was engaging in self-harm in as safe as a way as I possibly could. So that meant sterilizing my blades as best as I could and cleaning my wounds straight after and bandaging my wounds. Sometimes I would disregard those safety features. It was rare, but sometimes I did. They were normally in terms of real extreme emotional distress. Obviously, all my emotional distress was real, but I couldn't comprehend how distressing it was in that moment. And I didn't have access to my safety methods. So like if I was in school or something like that. Self-harm when it comes to BPD, for me, was very deliberate and it was very thought out. And I was very reluctant to change. I couldn't understand why. I knew I wasn't supposed to be doing this, so it was very hidden. I was an emo child and fingerless gloves were my friends for fashion and for hiding evidence. And I got very good at learning what parts of my body I wouldn't have to show to people. And it's continued for far too long. Eventually, when a loved one discovered what I'd done, there was battles within myself of trying to be better for them and trying to stop self-harm. But eventually I got frustrated. I got so frustrated that people all around me were engaging in activities that harmed our health, so such as smoking. And these were deemed as socially acceptable ways of harming your health long term. And I couldn't understand why I shouldn't self-harm when others were engaging in risky activity also. And it was only when I got diagnosed with BPD and when I began DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, and I really had to explore why I self-harm, how I self-harm, and my thoughts around it, that I became to accept that this isn't the healthiest coping mechanism I could have. Prior to this, I had read loads of self-help books and I tried myself to stop. I went to therapy with Pieta House, which was very focused on just what could we replace self-harm with rather than the reasons I self-harm. And I done CBT and loads of different things. And none of them were effective of keeping me away from knives for longer than a month. And that month, generally speaking, was not a case of the skills were working. It was more so a case of I felt guilty and I didn't want to disappoint whoever it was in my life who recommended that I should be doing X, Y, and Z course. It was only when I started DBT that I accepted that this was something I wanted to change for myself, because then I explored why. And different things are going to work for different people. CBT works for some and DBT works for others. Some people, there's loads of different ways out there. And it's about exploring what method is right for you, which is a lot easier said than done. I will acknowledge that. And as I say, the thing that really helped me through all this was my loved ones. I didn't talk to them about self-harm. because I don't want to put that pressure on anybody. But simple things like my best friend sat and held my hand while I rang Pieta house for the first time. And just that support and that grounding in that moment was enough to get me through. We need to all find what works for us. And I know not all of us have a community, but I hope that you know that you can reach out to professionals and charity groups and peer support groups, even if you don't have anybody in your immediate life that you trust. Self-harm from a BPD perspective for me very much is about controlling those intense, not controlling those intense emotions, distracting from those intense emotions. I learned to challenge those thoughts, and I learned to improvise. A cold can of Coke pressed to wherever I need that relief can sometimes be enough to help distract me from those deep emotions. Exercise when I'm healthy enough, pushing off by 5 minutes. Literally saying to myself, setting a timer and saying I'm not allowed to self-harm for 5 minutes and distracting myself, whether that's playing video games or making a phone call, whatever. And then if the urge is still there after 5 minutes, try for another 5 minutes, and just constantly, because 5 minutes feels, telling myself that I cannot self-harm for 5 minutes feels a hell of a lot more achievable than telling myself I can't self-harm full stop. I'm not saying these are going to work for you. I hope you may get some ideas, but there is a ton of resources, ton of ideas out there. And I do hope one of them helps. As for my autistic urge to self-harm, that's the more complicated one. While I have not cut in months and months and months, I don't know how long now at this stage, which in itself is revolutionary for me, that I don't even know the last time I did. The urges are still there. Don't get me wrong. I still fight those urges. I haven't used a blade. They were hard to challenge because I did not want to challenge them. I couldn't understand why I was challenging them, but I got there in terms of action. Urges, still a work in progress. Autistic why I self-harm from an autistic point of view, so much harder. And it's something I really struggle with. So while from a BPD point of view is like when I'm extremely upset or whatever, trying to distract myself from that pain. From an autistic point of view, I can use pain in terms of grounding. Not healthy, do not recommend, but I do. That's what I use pain for. If I am at a shop and the lights are bright and there's so much noise and I'm just getting so much sensory input, it's so much easier for me to focus on one sensation, like my nails digging into my wrists. It is the one that is a lot harder for me to combat because I'm not always even aware fully that I'm doing it, and it is a lot smaller, so people would let me away with it a lot more. So like scratching my skin, biting, headbanging, people don't tend to let me away with as much, but there is a continuum of the severity, the intensity. Can people see it? Can they not? And that one is so much harder. It's about preparing myself. So I have an ice rolling stick that like you use for like sore muscles and stuff, that I will literally roll on my arm so I can focus on that sensation rather than have a mint in my bag, so I can try to focus in on the taste of the mintiness. My headphones, I'm a fiend for music, so having my noise cancelling headphones and listening to my music as loud as I need to but that requires me to be prepared. That requires me to always have my bag packed and always make sure I have all these things with me to help me. And what's going to help me one day is not going to necessarily help me the next day. So it's having a variety of things always available to me. I don't want anybody to watch this and think that I believe to stop self-harming is the easiest thing in the world. I don't. It's a hard battle, but it's a battle that is achievable. There's supports out there. There's help out there if you know where to find them and if you push for them. And there are better ways of coping. I'm never going to judge somebody for self-harming. You can't. There are better ways of coping, and it's just finding the one that works for you. And for me, the only way I found out what worked for me was by figuring out why I self-harm, because then I could combat it. So trying to avoid busy shopping centres because the sensory overwhelmness is going to get to me from that side of things. Or if I know something really upsetting is about to happen, we don't always get to prepare for upsetting things, but if I know I have something upsetting coming up, like an anniversary of a death or whatever, making sure I schedule something lovely and nice for myself. I know when those urges take over of what would help us in that moment. And that's where the preparation comes in. I have YouTube playlist of videos that make me smile and laugh. I have a stack of books that make me giggle, and it's all pre-prepared. So I know I don't have to think in those moments. The only thing I have to think about is removing myself from a dangerous situation, whether that is moving from the kitchen into the sit room and plunking myself down on the sofa and not moving from the sofa until somebody else is there with me, or until I feel safe enough within myself. I hope I did not bore you. I hope you know there are places to turn to. And if you do struggle with self-harm urges or actions, please do talk to your GP or your local mental health team, reach out to peer support groups. And if you find yourself in immediate risk, ring 999 or go to your local emergency department. I will put together a list of resources and post it under this video. But I just want to say, you're more than these urges. They may consume you sometimes, but you are so much more, and you deserve for your brain not to think the only solution is pain. I want to say you deserve kindness, but I know I would reject that if I heard somebody saying that, especially a stranger on the internet. And if you have any tips on how to avoid giving into the urges, please do share them. And if you don't feel like you can publicly share them, get in touch with Neuro Pride and we will share if we can. And same goes for if you know of any supports or services out there. Let's share the knowledge. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Are there supports available? In the Republic of Ireland, there are several supports available via the HSE, such as local mental health teams, local health centres, GPs, emergency departments. Call your HSE Your Mental Health Information Line on 1-800-111-888 anytime or day. And if you need to talk to somebody immediately, there are some options available. Text hello to 50808 or call the Samaritans on 116 123 or contact them via their website. Call Pieta House on 1800 247 247 or text help to 51444. An app that is very useful is Cam Harm, and other supports and resources can be found on the HSE's website, treaties.ie and talktotom.ie. Thank you.